My head reflects light naturally. There was a little bit of a signage confusion outside, so this seems to have been a mystery session because there's nothing announcing the session outside. So I think it's symbolic that we were expecting AI to tell us where this room was. But for those who've joined us, Exactly. So I think the trick is those who have, despite that, have made it obviously will need to look at the future of experiential learning and AI. I'm Anil Srinivasan. I'm a professor at Krea University. I do not teach computer science, which is what makes me very equipped to talk about this. What I do teach is in the humanities and social sciences, and we're largely beginning to look at how behavioral change is beginning to happen, both with students as well as with the idea of pedagogy itself. Now that AI is no longer a trend, AI is no longer just something that we discuss as a fancy dinner time conversation, but it's very much a part of our lives. We've even formed a committee in my university to even look at how to now start looking at student assessments, how to look at student evaluations, because 90% of the time what's getting submitted has not been written by the student. Right? 90% of the time what's been created by the student is not created by the student. Then how do you evaluate what it means to us as faculty, what it means to a larger community who's involved in counseling, what it means to train students and yourselves towards the 21st century. I'm going to be joined by one of my panelists today. The other panelist has given me data. So Prathamesh Turaga is a professor also at Krea in the Department of Computer Science. So he and I actually offer a very interesting course. We call it Music and Data Science. As fancy as it sounds. So for those of you who are sitting in the back of the plenary hall and couldn't see me clearly, I was the guy playing in the morning, so I've got some association with music. And we do a course called Music and Data Science, and part of that is also beginning to look at how AI is impacting even the creative arts, right? How it's beginning to affect the way we create even things like music, or how fine arts are getting affected by that, and so on and so forth. In fact, we start with a very, very nice lesson, and I thought I'll start with that as people are getting settled in. It's called the philosophy of variance, right? So we've all heard of variance as a concept. Variance is nothing but the square of standard deviation for those who've done statistics. And I know this is not meant to be a statistics class, but I will still say it. I like to sound intelligent when I can. Not many, thanks to AI, that is not very often these days. The other co-presenter that I have is very special. I'm going to introduce him last because he's physically present here. He actually deserves the fanfare when we welcome him. The philosophy of variance, right? So we've heard of variance in the whole concept of statistics. But think about it, when I strike a note on a keyboard, like I did this morning, let's say the note that I've struck has a specific frequency associated with it. So if I strike the middle C on a keyboard, that's 440 or 442 oscillations per minute. Now at 442, there are some pianos, as you know, which will be out of tune, so that they will have natural variance. But there are also, when I strike that note, it is also giving you at a very infinitesimal level, which is only probably detectable by very advanced auditory technology, a variance which is plus or minus 6 oscillations this way and that way. So in music, the idea of oscillation is very easily understood. The idea of, so that's variance. And then you start looking at how you apply the concept of variance to almost anything we say. Now, let me apply that to something that might be potentially problematic. When we make assertions or a statement on Facebook, or more to this crowd, when we make assertions on LinkedIn, right? We talk about something which we think is the mean truth or the average truth when we write that. It's always subject to interpretation. It's always subject to variance this way and that way, right? So I've taken a statistical concept. First, I spoke about it with respect to music. Now I'm speaking about it with respect to our very versions of how we interpret reality, right? What implications does this have, for example, in the way people are describing, annotating, or writing about phenomenon and submitting that as college essays, for example. Are we getting opinions? Are we getting variance? Are we getting absolute truth? Or are we just getting an AI-enabled text that our tired brains can no longer process? Right? As teachers, as counselors, as evaluators, what do I need to change about the way I set assessments? How is the college essay even relevant anymore? These are all questions we need to start asking. These are not questions that we need to ask in that beautiful conference that we are all going to attend in Long Beach 10 years from now. It's a question that we need to ask today. Is the essay even relevant anymore? Right? So looking at some of these things is what made us come up with music and data science, and that's the course in Prathamesh, and I co-run that course. And we usually see a very record attendance for that course because, of course, students are very, very interested and fascinated because you have one professor who's playing music and the other professor is talking in statistics and computer science. But more than that, I think this idea of versions of truth is a very relevant topic and a very relevant phraseology for today. Which version of truth do you represent? Right? In the middle of all this, we're throwing in technology, and technology is changing faster than anyone can predict. We already know that in life, whether or not you're attached to your spouse, your partner, you're very attached to your mobile phone. One of the most important companions we will take, even to the grave and beyond. I wouldn't be surprised if people start clicking selfies of themselves dying, for example. Let the last thing I look at be the number of people who pressed like on it before I close my eyes forever. We've already gone into this. AI is not something in the future. AI is something very much in the present. And I want to disambiguate it also from things which become trendy and cool for a while and then go away. So I was talking to my co-presenter and I said Web3. Everybody was talking about Web3 a couple of years ago. And everybody wanted to be in on Web3. All conferences were about Web3. Web3 is now no longer being discussed with as much assiduity. But this is changing everything. What is experiential learning? All of these things is what this session is going to be about. I want to present with great fanfare my co-presenter and sort of co-journeyman in this particular journey. Sreene Ranganathan is, could you stand up? Sreene is used to head strategy for Meta India. And heading strategy for Meta India comes with its own challenges, and I'm sure you can talk a little more to that. But Meta was also one of the first movers when it came to seeing how AI and education can start actually becoming a more purposeful, purposive kind of thing. So he's going to speak a lot from his experiences. Many of you who've attended IC3 before have heard me in multiple forums. So I may get a little repetitive, but Sreene is somebody that you don't want to miss. Have I done well? Did predictive text actually tell you this is what we're going to say? Okay. On that note, so everywhere you go today, people are saying, you know, everything is turning AI, right? In fact, the simplest way to make your company cool is if you have a company called XYZ Enterprises, just call it XYZ.ai, and it'll suddenly shoot up in valuation, right? Since I am from Chennai, I said maybe we should just call it Chen.ai, and it'll become even cooler, right? We can start attracting investments. This other hype that's going on is that, oh my God, learning is under threat, and you know everything we know about life is going to change, and all of us are going to be outdated in this room, and we better start finding other jobs. I want to go back to organic farming. Oh my God, what if AI takes over that as well? So all of this is going on. So I just wanted to place the reason why this topic is obviously of great importance. So, and therefore, what implications does it have for the role for the educator, the role for the student, right? And very pertinent to the IC3 conference, what is the role of the counselor in all of this, right? Like, for example, the first question of the day that I'm placing to us is the college essay still relevant, right? Is your SOP still relevant? It is, but is it relevant in quite that form, right? Importantly, how does AI affect the evaluation of student profiles, for example? These are the conversations we need to have. Student work. What's happening to this word called skill? Now, that's another thing. So if earlier, right, and this I can take back to my undergraduate mathematics lessons, right? When we did basic principles in calculus, for example, you pretty much had to solve it by hand, right? You had to understand the underlying principle. You need to understand geometry. You need to understand a slope. You need to know what delta x by delta y used to be. You had to do it the long way. You pretty much had to do it from scratch, right? You don't have to do that anymore, right? So as teachers, what are we teaching in our classrooms, right? That has changed immensely, right? Especially in undergraduate classes. So I teach undergraduate classes. What we are teaching has had to undergo a lot of change, not just how we are teaching it, right? How we set assignments have started changing. The assignment itself has probably not changed, right? How do we enable this, and what is the future? So I'm going to go back to this. This is sort of this is my research work. All of my work is in this particular domain, in what we are now beginning to call creative intelligence, right? I think 8 or 9 years ago in education, the only thing that everybody spoke about was Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, right? Even in conferences that I would have attended a decade ago, even if people didn't know what it was, they would say, oh, you must have heard of Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. I think people thought that if they said it 3 times very fast, it made them sound very smart. Probably did, because I got completely intimidated by that, right? But what Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences did not predict and did not look at is how do we define the whole realm of creativity? What about creative thinking? Right? So if you are running a school and you go in the morning and you have an event that you're supposed to organize, it rains, it pours, the bus breaks down, you have parents screaming outside the office. I can see from certain smiles here that people have been through these situations, right? It is your creativity that comes to the fore, and not creativity meaning you don't break into song at quite that moment, not that form of creativity, although that might be a good idea. Everything is going, so let me just sing, like Nero played the fiddle when Rome burnt. But no, it is creative thinking, creative decision making, and sort of on the spot heuristic that you use to manage multiple situations. Now, you are faced with that situation today when AI is beginning to take over what most of us in this room were educated and trained to do, right? And you still have to face a target audience of either parents or students, educators, your ecosystem. You're going to have to start applying some of these heuristics and change the way you frame the question, change the way you frame what that conversation is going to be. We are no longer asking for what, we are going to have to start also investing a lot into the how and why. So all of these things require that the creative intelligence model is brought to the fore. So some of us, researchers across the world, are trying to now understand creativity in the form of different forms of creativity. So the first form is the artistic form that we all understand. I'm just rephrasing this. I know some people heard it last year, but it is worth retelling. Artistic creativity is not just about being able to sing or play an instrument or paint or draw, although those things are outputs of that. Artistic creativity is that part of your creative makeup that allows you to do things like pattern recognition, being able to look at a situation and look at an alternative which doesn't even exist, take that leap of the imagination and be able to use this, right? Look at what's available in the kitchen and say, okay, with this I can make something, right? That ability is all under artistic creativity. I mean, because of the word art, let's not assume it's only fine or performing arts, right? Fine or performing arts also comes into that, because instead of ingredients in a kitchen, I can say a set of notes and I'm able to think of a composition, and that's artistic creativity as well, right? But that's the first part. Pattern recognition, aesthetics, being able to combine multiple concepts and create a third concept, and so on and so forth. The second part is what is largely concerning a lot of us in this room, which is how do the creative intelligence systems speak to the way we start thinking? How do we train our students and how do we train our future achievers to start thinking creatively? What does that even mean? So, for example, if I give them a problem, right? I say that there is a specific environmental challenge. I say that there's a specific constraint problem. There's a specific conflict. How do I get them to start training themselves to think in a way a system cannot think? How do I train my pedagogies in such a way? Let's also be very clear. while AI has taken huge leaps in terms of development, how technology has progressed, AI systems still can't reason at the moment, right? All they're doing is taking a whole bunch of information and then making a prediction based on past information. They're still not reasoning for themselves. So the whole realm, the whole endeavor going into cognitive creativity is how do we now change pedagogies? How do we now change the way we talk to students so that they start thinking differently? And this requires a complete rewiring of lots of things about ourselves. So those kids who are making those leaps of faith by creating a new equation or saying, I have an idea for a new theory. I have an idea for, this is going to be the waste management problem that my school faces. Here is how that waste management problem can be addressed. And I'm thinking of using technology, or I'm planning to use this particular ESG template to be able to address it. Those are the kids who are scoring very highly on cognitive creativity. The third, which is probably the big yardstick for the 21st century, is collaborative creativity, right? So many of us grew up in an Indian education system where we learned to write exams by sitting like this. Do you recognize this beautiful bodily posture? This bodily posture means that my answers should not be seen by the person to the left of me, right of me, or behind me. And in rare cases, even to the person sitting 2 spaces diagonally behind me as well, right? Because we are a culture and we are an ecosystem which is obsessed with the word topper. I must alone be a topper because I can't have 20 toppers in the class. I can be the only topper, right? So now we are saying that, look, more and more assignments, when students get into college, right? One of the big things we give them is collaborative tasks, and we find repeatedly that children take some time to get into that at college level. At a 6th and 7th grade, they do it automatically. At an undergraduate level, you put students from different diverse backgrounds together, they're finding it a little tough, right? So here's the big boom, right? That faced with AI, faced with LLM, faced with how machines are being increasingly becoming intelligent, if we have to address the 21st century together, we're going to have to learn to walk together. It's not going to be done in individual toppers. We need to be thinking beyond that system. So a lot of the collaborative creativity theories come into that. And the last part is those children who are by design entrepreneurs, right? They're the ones who are designing new systems. They're the ones who are driving innovation forward. They already have a proclivity for that, right? They're able to somehow be able to create new ideas, muster enough people to get into those ideas, get new ideas to actually burgeon, flourish, and become new ideas and ventures of their own. It comes naturally to some people, right? We are now beginning to say that the creative intelligence model is not just here to stay, but if we have to look at the future of experiential learning. So we're saying experiential learning, it's not just a specific methodology. It's learning by experience. And learning by experience is directly connected to the idea of developing creative intelligence, right? How high can I develop the artistic creativity factor in each of you? How do I balance out this, right? These 4 dimensions, all of us are blessed with all 4 dimensions, some a little more, some a little less. So the idea is saying the new model, the new language of learning is going to be in an AI-enabled world. We will have to learn through experience, and that experience has to teach me to balance. So it was like balancing feng shui sort of factors. Here we have to balance the creativity factors as composites of the creative intelligence model, right? So I'm just sort of putting all the theoretical parts of this out and why we are beginning to change this. What does learning through experience, how does it sort of boil down, right? So the first thing we train them in is, are you asking the right questions? So as teachers, as educators, as counselors, when I'm talking to students, the first question is, are you asking the right questions, right? And for example, I'll give an example. So this is one of the projects we did on Crew. Crew is, by the way, the platform for project-based learning that I set up. In fact, Akshay is here, who works with me very closely on setting up more projects with different professors across the world. One of the big focuses is, are you asking the right questions? Research, right? And research does not just involve a questionnaire, it's how are you thinking? Remember, I started by saying we need to start looking at how we train students to think in different ways. So are we asking the right question? So my favorite is Professor Shugata Mitra from the University of Newcastle. And Shugata Mitra is better known for many of us as the man who tried the hole in the wall experiment, right? In Delhi, he put a computer in a wall that separated his office from a slum, right? And in what? 60 days, students had taught themselves how to program, right? Everybody said, oh, you're putting a computer in a wall. They will steal the computer and sell it for parts. Oh, ganda ho jayega, right? Instead, he put it in the wall, allowed students and children from that slum, from the other side of the wall, taught themselves how to use Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, pretty much started learning how to start doing simple programs just 2 months, right? He asked the students on crew, he said, what is the future of the human being? Right? That was the question he threw open to them. He said, we are not going to do a project because everybody got into that project thinking, oh, so cool. We are also going to do a hole in the wall kind of exercise. And he said, no, with all this AI and all of that's being given to you in the form of technology, the question that you should be asking is, so what is the role of the human being? So here I'm going to give you some good news. Okay. By the year 2030, which is just 6 years from now, the number of teachers who are required for the world, do you think it's going to increase or decrease? It's increasing to 93 million, okay, which is 33 million more than the number of teachers available in the world today. So for those who are teachers, great news. Here is the bad news. How you teach and what you teach is definitely going to change. Right? And therefore, acquiring that part of understanding how to work with technology as opposed to working against technology is going to become important. So how are we training our children to ask the right question? So what's going to happen to the human being? And children have come up with fantastic answers, as usual, right? We also have to be prepared to get children to start thinking of asking the difficult questions, right? And what are these difficult questions? Right? So one of the projects we've done is on QC, which is quantum computing, with Professor Sreene Ranganathan. And he says, look, there are multiple ways. You have to train yourself to start saying each problem may not have only one solution. Let's remember the philosophy of variance again. There's going to be multiple solutions possible. What I'm more interested in is your approach to the problem. I'm not interested in the actual answer, right? What I want is for you to show me the steps of how you're going to think. Is that perhaps one of the ways in which we can start getting our children in schools, even when they're navigating something as complex as which college should I go join, right? There is no specific answer to that question. Let's revisit the approach, right? So that is one of the questions. Then once you've asked the right questions and the tough questions, then where do you go get the data? Right? And we did a project on that with Macquarie, right? Which was on how do I go, first of all, how do I even list out data sources? How do I go about acquiring data? When we were in school and in college, data meant we would write up a questionnaire, go to our entire block of flats that we lived in and ask every parent to fill up that questionnaire, right? It's not so simple anymore, right? Also, if you just put something, and then we also went into this era of SurveyMonkey, and you put something on SurveyMonkey and it will send it out to a whole bunch of people, but you no longer know whether the data is valid or not. People could have just fudged stuff and just sent it back to you. They could have just answered a whole bunch of random things. So there is now a methodology by which data itself can be gathered, and largely data science classrooms are now beginning to talk about this, right? How do we go about this? And then the most important part, how do we control for noise? Right? How do I know which is the right data? How do I know which is actually the mean and not the variance? Right? And a large part of mathematical modeling, right? So we are no longer teaching maths as maths. We are teaching maths as a combination of two different things. Mathematical reasoning, which is how to reason through mathematics, not getting right answers, but asking the right questions. And we are also looking at mathematical analysis, that part of it which is applicable to data science. So I'm just listing out various things. These are all, by the way, projects on Crew. But the reason I'm listing these out is that these are the ways of thinking which are changing. And the only way to train for these ways of thinking, apart from pedagogical changes, is experience. So the more projects, the more problem sets students start experiencing of these things, the more they start getting equipped towards how to handle the uncertainty that's facing them. There's a very beautiful speech, I'm sure many of you saw it, made by the valedictorian of Harvard's undergraduate class on saying uncertainty is a good thing, right? I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but uncertainty is the world we are living in, right? So here's the thing, some answers right away. AI will guide student profiles, which means the students are expected to know more about what they would like to do. More importantly, they are expected to know what they don't want to do, right? Given the tools that are available, there is a higher expectation on the quality of research, right? For example, that subcommittee in my university, which is testing out student essays, is also being formed specifically to make sure that we know where students are filching stuff from other people's work, right? Earlier, they used to be done by softwares like Turnitin, but now it's gone one step further, right? So how we are evaluating is also changing. And it has to, because if everything is going to be done by the machine, then what has the student done? Having the right benchmarks and comparables, that's becoming a big must for students. And of course, they have to learn to work alongside machines. That's no longer an opportunity. So it means that this group, all of us together, needs to understand what's available. We need to understand what GenAI is, what it's all about, what ChatGPT means, what it stands for, right? We need to understand these terms, these terminologies, become conversant with them and learn to live with these things. We definitely need to be endowing our spaces more as spaces for experience, spaces for experiential learning, and spaces for project-led learning. This is going to be the standard, right? Creativity and learning in creative ways to be able to problem solve together is definitely going to be the future of learning. And on that note, what is GenAI? What is LLM? What do all these terms mean? I shall get Mr. Sreene Ranganathan to take us forward.
Thank you. Thanks, Anil. So maybe I'll have 4 or 5 slides, talk for maybe 10 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions. So why is there so much hype about GenAI? Over the last 2 years, there is not a single piece of news that you read that doesn't reference AI in some form or fashion. But AI has been in existence for over 2 decades, right? So what I did is I actually went to ChatGPT and asked the question, hey, AI has been in existence for decades, so why all the hype about GenAI? And the key part to GenAI is the gen part, which is the generative part, right? Previously, the way AI used to work is it used to take a lot of different data sources, absorb all that material, and then it can predict what can potentially happen, right? And it was more about automation, it was more about optimization. That's what AI was all about. With the generative part, there is a very creative angle that's come into it. So whatever this answer for why this answer that came from ChatGPT for why the hype, this exact text has not been written by anyone, right? This has been generated, right? So there is a creative element to AI that's come up now that didn't exist until, probably 4 or 5 years ago, but I think the last 2 years where we have seen ChatGPT as the one that actually has brought this to the forefront. So when we say that there is a hype, Anil talked about Web3, and Web3 was all the rage. There was whole set of things around AR, VR, different type of learning, specifically in education that people were talking about. There was also, a whole bunch of things around decentralization, right, with blockchain, etc., right? But why is GenAI is different and it's here to stay? And if I wanted to draw the example of like mobile and internet. If you think about internet and what it really did well was it connected supply and demand at near zero marginal cost, right? So what it means is if you want to go find a product, you could basically do it at a from marginal cost of near zero. And once you can do that and people started doing it, there was massive amount of data that got accumulated. And based on that, there was hyper personalization that happened. So when I go to Netflix or Amazon, and you go to Netflix and Amazon, what you see and what I see is very different. It's because of the massive amounts of interactions that we have all had and people like me have had. It's not just Sreene having the interaction, but people like Sreene, and we are all, in some bucket, right? Like the way you think about either geography, language, you can think about a lot of different things. And so that hyper personalization was enabled. And then what mobile did to that, which is a massive exponential acceleration, was it made it always on, right? Not just when broadband came about, everyone talked about always on. Prior to that, I don't know how many of you remember, but it used to be a dial-up. Like there was this noise that came, and then you need to go actually connect to the internet. Then when broadband came, it was always on. But then with mobile, it's always on you, right? Whether you are traveling, whether you are whatever, right? And so that is what actually created a massive exponential growth in terms of what internet did to us and how we are living our lives now compared to 2 decades ago. GenAI has a lot of those similar features. So if you think about what it's doing, it's actually democratizing creation. It's democratizing knowledge and content. So from an education perspective, specifically as you think about what it means, there is a lot of different ways to teach. So when someone comes up with a new way of teaching a concept, you need to actually go read a book, understand that, and then apply that to what you're teaching. With GenAI, you don't need to do that. Like if you are teaching, Newton's third law of motion, and this is how you've always taught it, but 30% of your students are not really getting it, you can actually go ask ChatGPT or other LLMs that are out there, hey, is there a different way to do it? Can I actually run an experiment in the class that makes this clear to students? Is there a way I can go step by step, ask students questions, and get them to the finish line? And there are all these different teaching tools that are in front of you that didn't exist in the past. And now, it's not zero marginal cost because it's super expensive, but you are not paying anything, right? Like someone else is, discounting it for us. And so it actually is enabling new ways of thinking about it, new ways of engaging. And the same thing goes with personalization as well. So when we think about, hey, I cannot teach 5 different ways of the same concept to students because one, I don't have time. There are, 30 to 60 kids in my class, and how do I go about it? I think that is where you actually enable students that and tell them how to use this technology so that they can actually go and learn, one, right? Or two, if 70% of the students are not getting it, then maybe it makes sense to go try something else that you are getting from one of these tools. And the beauty of it is you don't need to go learn this concept holistically, right? You can, for every one of these things at a very granular level, you can actually go and run it and learn it and give to the kids. So it's still very early. So this is statistics on how much in K through 12 in the US, how much of AI and generative AI is being used. Almost 66% or 2/3 of the respondents basically said they are not using Gen AI. And then there is 2% who are saying they're using it a lot. And then there is some of them are saying we are going to start in the next year. But 2/3 is such a big amount and 2% is such a small amount for something that's in the news every day, like this whole hype that we are all seeing. But why is it that people are not using it more? And the survey results basically say it's fear and uncertainty because we don't know what it is. And I don't know if I need to use it or not. Whatever I'm doing now is working, right? But whether we like it or not, the kids are actually using it in some form or fashion. So we are better off getting ahead of it and making sure that they understand how they are supposed to use it. One. And then the second piece is this whole thing about cheating. And there are multiple references to it, even during the conference as I have spoken to people. But one of the Stanford study found that cheating levels have stayed the same before and after ChatGPT. So whether it is, I don't know how they measured it, But that is a very interesting statistic, right? Like, because you are saying, hey, I need to figure out if students are cheating. I need to figure out if students are using it, the right way. It feels like they are using it as right a way as they were using internet in the past. So what should we do when we engage students? And a lot of it might be kind of obvious points, but there is this whole tendency to say, hey, I'm just going to ban, Gen AI. I don't want to use it. But it's already out there. It's not like students need to come to school to use it. They are using it at home anyway. So you are better off getting ahead of it. It's about not finding the answers, but it's about learning concepts. So if you there is a really interesting both educator flow, like a chat flow, as well as a student chat flow that Khan Academy has actually released, which when we go through that flow, you can actually see, hey, what kind of questions you can ask, how do students actually go ask the questions, and how does how does Gen AI ask the questions back to the students and kind of walk them through the concept so they're actually learning the concept. So it's not just understanding, hey, what is the answer to my question, but how do I go about it, and what do I learn? So that is a key part of how this tool should be used. Then there is a critical thinking aspect to this whole thing, and that has actually two places that it comes in. One is there is a bias. So when you go to any of the LLM models right now and say, hey, I need images of superheroes, almost all the images that come out are men. And there is no reason for that, right? Like, there are so many women superheroes that we see, like even like Disney superheroes that we see, but that inherent bias cannot be the way the kids think that this is how the world is, right? So that needs to be clarified, that there is critical thinking and you need to ask questions. And the same thing again comes about when you talk about hallucinations. This whole concept of AI hallucinating, which is, it just gives you a blanket wrong answer and doesn't say that it doesn't know, is real. I think in some studies about a year ago, almost 20% of the answers were hallucinated answers in some form or fashion, right? So critically saying, hey, does this answer make sense? And I used to be an investment banker prior to Meta, and one of the things that we would do is we will do all these multiples, right? Like, so say, hey, whether this company is trading at a price that is fair, undervalued, or overvalued, right? And so when you actually run the math and everything and you see it, the first thing that my boss used to say is, hey, can you please ask yourself, does it make sense? Like, you cannot say, hey, Google is undervalued or Walmart is overvalued without knowing all the context around it. So can you actually say, does it make sense? And can you rationally describe to me, without numbers, does it make sense? I think that's part of what we need to get kids to think about these tools, is not just find the answer, but also how do I get them to be more critically thinking about it and asking these questions. And then, tell them that there are tools that exist that find if you have actually cheated, which I think Anil was referencing, Turnitin, etc. But there are a bunch of other things that have come up as well, where you can know whether it's generated or whether it's actually returned by students. And then from an administrator perspective, there is a lot to do with Gen AI. From an efficiency perspective, how do you improve quality? Where do you make the investments? And then how do you have better communication? So with each of these, there is opportunity to be more cost effective, to be more automated and be more effective. And that is part of what Gen AI brings to the table for administrators. So the efficiency part, right? That's what my new startup we are trying to do, is like just take any description in English and then convert that into a software program. Kevin Scott, the CTO of Microsoft, actually recently mentioned that, hey, the new programming language is human language. And what it means is you should be able to say what you want in plain English or in Hindi or in Tamil, and we should be able to translate that and convert. And that's like Gen AI is really good at doing things like that, right? And so taking advantage of it. What that means is the price associated with building software, deploying software, using software, everything goes down, and the way you interact with software also changes. You don't need to go click on a button or understand complex UI. You can actually ask a question and it should be able to give you an answer. And then when you think about parent communication with students and with teachers and schools, you can actually provide very granular feedback, right? You don't need to say that this person got X grade in math. You can actually say within math, like where were they struggling because of automated assessments, and then all these different teaching methods we talked about, and what is working, what is not working. And that's where parents can actually be a lot more engaged in terms of what the student is doing, which again adds a lot of value from an overall student life cycle perspective. Maybe I'll pause and hand it back to Anil.
Thank you, Sreene. So it's a lot of things that we have thrown. So I thought I started the session by saying what's in it for the student, what does the educator have to do, and what does the counselor have to do, right? So we've tried to sort of summarize this. As far as the student is concerned, I think we started by saying, look, you have to be asking the right questions. You have to be asking the tough questions. You have to know where to look for the data, how to go about data aggregation, and then you need to know how to rule out noise. So, which means that the future lies in experiential ways, problem-led or project-led ways of problem solving, right? As I said right at the beginning, we are creating and enabling more and more possibilities for leveraging Gen AI to be able to do what we had conventionally learned as problem solving, that the nature of problem solving itself is changing, right? So it means more problem solving and project management skills. So that's where the investment for students is going to have to go. A large part of what students are going to have to be enabled to do, are expected to do, as I said, they are supposed to be better equipped, is also learning to work with, as Sreene said, it's now possible to be using voice in English to be able to tell a machine how to create a software for a specific customized solution. That's how easy it is becoming, right? So if I have a startup idea, for example, on something that I want to do to have better signage around Yashobhumi, right? I can think it, I can speak it, I can and a software will get created, and lo and presto, that's literally the sort of fantasy land that we are headed into, right? Which means that working with tech for change and working with tech for impact and those kinds of projects are going to be important for students. And a large portion of education going forward is going to be self-discovery. How are we enabling self-discovery in our schools, in our counseling programs? How are we asking our students to do more and more sort of self-discovery based projects, self-discovery based experience programs, and things like that, immersions, right? Everything which is flipped, it's no longer the classroom setup. As far as the educator is concerned, it means the educator themselves. It's not that, Sreene and I were discussing this just before the session, it's not as though you have to go and get certified in LLM models, or you have to start learning to be an AI enabled expert. No. It just means you need to know what's happening out there. For example, in many of our school environments, can we actually have a news track, like a news reel, or can we have a little club that's an AI club that's actually updating the rest of the school about what's happening in terms of these things? Are there, for example, if you go on to very many of the universities that we've been referencing, both the crew projects as well as everything else, many of the universities are running projects which can be participated in for free. Right? We need to be encouraging that. Could we incentivize and give credit for some of these projects to our students in schools? Right? As far as the counselor is concerned, the counselors themselves, and this is something I can't stress enough, I feel that a lot of the counselors themselves need to start involving themselves in projects and experience modules. Right? It's not just saying, do this, do that. It's about, can you do? Right? So that you'll understand that this is not something which is so, hey, if a piano playing musician can become this comfortable talking about AI, so can you. Okay, it's as simple as that, right? You need to be going through this. Of course, for those who are so inclined, I think the idea is that we are now coming into an era where we need to be encouraging more and more collaborative, more and more tech and AI enabled project based learning and setting up for scale. right? I think entrepreneurship is, especially, which is the big part of the creative intelligence piece, entrepreneurship is probably going to be the education, right? And I say entrepreneurship, it doesn't mean that everybody has to go open a startup. No. What it means is you see a problem, you enable yourself and empower yourself to become the person who's going to address that problem by creating the solution towards that problem. It's no longer the situation of saying, hey, who do I complain to that this is not happening? Right? So how do we set up for that? How do we set up for more and more of these kinds of ideas? Right? So here are some good things. A machine can still not reason. Right? So whatever we've taught machines to do, a machine can still not reason. So if you ask a machine, produce something that looks like a waterfall, it will take images of waterfalls, it will take the sounds of waterfalls, and it will create a beautiful audio visual around it. But if you tell the machine, I want the waterfall to look like the kind of waterfall that can be found in subtropical grasslands of the kind I visited, etc., it will not know what to do. In fact, today, I always, I'm obsessed with myself, as some of you who are very good friends of mine here know. So as usual, today I asked ChatGPT who I am. I love doing that, by the way. It's such an ego gratifying exercise because it usually talks about somebody else. As usual, I asked ChatGPT who Anil Srinivasan is. The first two paragraphs are wonderful things, mostly true. The third and fourth paragraphs are completely untrue. It's just that I would love those things to be true, right? But the reason I'm saying this, half as a joke, is also because it's not perfected yet, right? And like I said, 93 million teachers are still going to be required. It's just what we as teachers, what we as counselors are going to do is going to change. So it cannot still problem solve, right? So it can solve a calculus problem set that you give it, like a calculator can do, right? It can do a whole bunch of things, but it cannot, for example, if I say, let's say Pamela and I are having an argument and we have this particular conflict. It could be an ethical conflict. It could be a moral conflict. You still cannot teach a machine how to resolve that particular conflict. How I wish we could, but we can't, right? It is only able to do that much. So there is a lot of this which we need to read into in terms of how education and pedagogy itself is going to change. And my last part is probably the most profound. A machine can still not be taught how to love somebody else. Now, don't think naughty things, right? Things which are very, very redolent of human emotion are still very much in our capability, which is why I'm going back, with your permission, to the whole creative intelligence and the creative intelligence quotient. When you look at this, artistic creativity, which is really, as I said, looking at patterns and being able to create patterns of your own. Looking at cognitive creativity, which is looking at existing models, but being able to look at existing models and synthesize and create something new. Collaborative creativity, working together to create something new. And then those children who are natural born entrepreneurs, which is the whole design and innovator box. So if you look at it, the key to everything is create something new, create something new, create something new. Create something new is still something that we can do, right? And hopefully that new is something nice, right? I will stop here. Sreene and I and Prathamesh. The sum and substance of it is this, right? And I know some people wanted to see this particular slide. The future is experiential, right? Increasingly complex world of problems. So we are changing pedagogies from looking at how do you solve the problem by yourself to saying technology is going to be able to help you to a large amount of that way. AI is already reading into a lot of our behaviors. So how do you start asking the right questions? How do you ask the difficult questions? And therefore, pedagogies need to change. Second is that the future is definitely experience-led, which means problems that exist in and around of ourselves, problems that exist in the environment, the macro and micro environment that we work in. We need to be aware, encourage more and more of that kind of thinking so that we can encourage change and creating something new. It also means that we as a group, the adults who are responsible for the children, there is a whole amount of upskilling, upgrading, and a certain amount of knowledge that's required. I really, as I said, encourage experience clubs or AI clubs, right? Which can actually, and doesn't have to be the computer science students, by the way. It's part of everything. If anything, what both of us are saying is that that's part of everything, right? The history students can do it. right? The point is that you need to start becoming more and more aware, and we can only do this as a joint effort. So we will stop there, and we will open the floor up for questions. Yes. Did you ask ChatGPT about me and it has given something interesting?
Just typed out. Are there any AI platforms that counselors can use to track students' non-academic metrics over a few years? So when it comes to the time to select a program in college, counselors or parents and also the students can go back and chat with the AI platforms to actually track over the years and know what were their insights and what were their interests in the last few years.
I think a whole bunch, right? A whole bunch of platforms have now been created, and each of them is measuring some aspect. I'm very sure a meta platform will come, which will then start synthesizing a lot of things. So just to give you an example, please don't think I'm self-advertising, but on Crew, one of the things that we have taught AI to do is to start looking at which part of a project, for example, a child is getting more fixated about, and which part is he or she getting less fixated about, which tells me a lot to learn about their skill and a lot to learn about their behavioral. So for example, if let's say that the project was about building a foldable house, that's a civil engineering project, the child who's spending the maximum amount of time, let's say, in the part of the process which is to do with design, is clearly a very different child from from another child who's doing the same project but spending the maximum amount of time on presentation. Right? Similarly, there are many children, for example, who remain super involved in the first two stages of a project, which is, say, the research phase or an ideation phase, and then they start dropping out after the ideation phase. The typical old school educator will say, you must finish the project and get certificate, right? We are saying that is no longer applicable. We are saying that means that this is a kid who is interested in being a researcher. He or she wants to ask questions, right? Wants to get into inquiry, probably a lot of very good inquiry, is not necessarily a problem solver. So I think what is getting embedded inside many of the existing educational platforms itself is telling us a lot, but there are also psychometric based AI tools, platforms, and programs that are now being designed just for this. I think Viosa is doing a profiling thing. Is that the platform? VIOSA. You can check it out. Okay, they're doing something like this. Viosa, VIOSA. It's a profiler. I don't know to what extent their AI investment is at the moment, but they were getting deeply into it. I know Crew, for example, we are doing a fair amount of automation. A lot of AI which is telling us what to do on skills, but there's a whole list. What I could do is probably share that list via the IC3 platform and send it out as a message.
I guess this question was running on my mind for a very long time. The very fact that you started with music and then you brought us to AI. Math, science, all subjects that are taught to us may be relevant, not relevant in the future, but we all go through that right. Looking at AI's impact on the future, is it good enough at least to expose all the children in the classroom to robotics and coding, and later on in their life decide whether they take it up or not?
Do you want to take this? Or should I take this? Yeah. No, that just has to be switched on.
So there is even when I was studying, right, and clearly when my daughter was studying in high school, one of the things she always used to ask is, hey, why is spelling relevant? Because I'm going to use word, it's going to tell me if I misspelled it, right? Why is it relevant? Or why is grammatically writing a sentence relevant, right? I think the reality is each of those help us sharpen a part of our brains without even us realizing. And so math and science and all these things help you think about new concepts and new ways and how to put it together so that you can actually, be different, be innovative, bring something new to the world. So all those are relevant, but just going back to the point around AI, I think to start with, everyone needs to know how to use these tools. Whatever their interests are, they don't have to be technologists. It's like basically saying, hey, how do you use internet? What is a safe way to use internet, right? When the internet wave started, there was not a lot of thought that was put into it because people did not think that it is going to be like how it is right now, right? And so it's almost like this frog in hot water. If you throw a frog in a really hot boiling water, it jumps out. But if it is just there and you start boiling it, right, the frog is going to slowly die. So that's how internet permeated. But I think with AI, I think there is onus on all of us to make sure that our own kids are learning it, so that they understand what the tools are, what they should use it for, what they should not use it for, and it's definitely a key part of what schools need to do as well.
So the answer directly, sir, to your question is yes. Not as you don't have to do it for 5 years from 6th to 10th or something like that, but definitely exposure to robotics as technology. And I think one of the solves that we have found is just give them projects, right? So you don't have to make it a course, but if you make it a project. So for example, we did a project on machine learning, right? Where a professor had given them an introduction to what machine learning was. But in order to crack that machine learning solution, you have to teach yourself how to code, right? And therefore, they actually self-paced, they figure out ways to learn to code on their own. Coding, the way coding was being made a big glorious thing 4 years ago, is no longer required because the machine is capable of doing it. And what Sreene was talking about, even you can type in English language now and programs are able to interpret it and they know what to do. So you don't need to learn, because what language are you going to teach? Because we say Python, for example, Python might be outdated 6 months from now. It may be outdated 10 months from now, right? So you don't need to teach them languages as part of school, but giving them projects which require them to be able to equip themselves. And now you have so many freewares available where students can pick up coding skills on their own if they need to. So you don't need to put that into the curriculum, but you can certainly set them projects which require them to get exposed to this. Definitely that's important. Yeah, Gulshan ma'am. AI-based pedagogical tools for teachers. Yeah, we can certainly make a compendium of that and send that. Definitely. 100%. 100%. Done. Sorry, somebody there.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
I'm asked about AI tools for teachers. My simple question is, what is the expectation to do? What teachers are not able to do? Because if AI is doing, how it is going to help the teacher to teach the kid? What is the expectation?
I just have to put it in this manner. Like say, we do a lot of like testing with the children, but I want to understand the underlying patterns of cognition so that I can plan out my remediations, my interventions. So maybe a AI tool, which if I give a set of questions and the tool is able to decipher that underlying patterns, it helps us as teachers evaluate and then plan out our strategies accordingly as what works with the child. So that's basically.
Yeah, and I think
As of now,
so. Even if you
This is the era of think it and it will happen. So now that she's put it out into the ether, somebody will do it. Yeah, yeah. Which is already happening, which is so. So, no, absolutely. Which is why, and I'll say this and then I'll hand over to Sreene because he has to talk about the whole customizability because he spoke about it very briefly. Definitely the way the brain, so I haven't touched upon neuroscience or anything to do with the brain at all today, okay? But definitely the brain and the way it is getting rewired, it's a huge topic in itself, right? There are multiple things. I mean, that's a whole topic by itself. That's an IC3 conference by itself, actually, what's happening to the human brain with respect to interventions in AI, because the way we are thinking is changing, right? The brain has always been lazy. I think last year's keynote speaker was called strategic laziness. In fact, absolutely no. I mean, we are by default, and this is studies. I'm not saying that we are all ALSI, but we are ALSI. Okay. Throughout history, humankind has always developed tools and technologies to make their job easier, right? So we are automatically drawn towards things that will cut down on decision making, cut down on effort. So this is going to happen, whether you like it or not. And therefore, but what I'm saying is, by rewiring the way we are thinking about pedagogy, another part of the brain now needs to start becoming active, which has been a little dormant for some time, which is the part to do with redoing pedagogical tools. which is to do with reframing the question, reframing evaluation, reframing. We have to start applying ourselves all over again. And that you're going to face a little resistance from yourself because nobody wants to change, right? But unless we do it, it's going to be a very difficult millennium to get into. That's what we're trying to say. So one part of the, so think of it like this, one department has shut down or is shutting down, another department now needs to start getting activated. So that's what's happening. And unfortunately for us, the rate at which this department is shutting down is much faster than the rate by which the brain is physiologically capable of reactivating another department. I'm putting it in very simplistic ways. It's tough, right? So, Sreene.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you covered it. The key way to think about it is whatever you are doing, right? Like say, for example, someone has been teaching a subject for 10 years. They are not thinking, hey, how can I, teach this subject in a different way, right? Whether it gets through to the student this year or not is important. And so from a grades perspective, everything we may push them in one way or another, but you are not actively thinking, how else can I teach this, right? I think that is where some of these tools are going to be helpful. It actually helps you be more creative, helps you think more, right, versus less. That's my view, right?
Yeah.
I think I've never done Shakespeare when I was studying. My daughter is doing Shakespeare. So when she comes and says, hey, how do I analyze this? I go to ChatGPT and say, hey, what does this analysis mean? I learn it, right? Then I can teach her what it is, right? And how to do it. And I could never have done and taught Shakespeare to her if I didn't, if ChatGPT didn't exist. Like that is where I think you can actually think about it and say, like, for example, one of the slides I had, I removed it for time reasons is, I said, hey, what is an LLM? It gave an answer, right? And then I said, for a non-technical person, can you tell me what this is? Then I said, hey, can you explain it to my 80-year-old mother? And each of those answers were progressively easier, right? And that is where these tools are going to be helpful. It's going to make people more effective, reach more kids, right? Reach more students and different students learn differently. And we all know that, right? And that is where the personalization can come in at scale, which was not possible. Like there was no way for you to go write 3 different answers. Now let me walk you through these 3 different answers in class. But now that it is available, maybe potentially you can actually reach more students. And this whole idea of one-to-one personalization that we see in internet and Amazon and Netflix, I think will be a reality in the not too distant future because of GenAI.
Which is why I put these 4 questions again. This is sort of, I'd love to say this is the new Bible for education, but basically this is what it is. Our pedagogies, the department that has to get reactivated has to now start reframing our curriculums, reframing our pedagogies in the classroom to help students ask the right questions, right? Then know that there are multiple solutions to every problem, which itself is a very different way of thinking, because most of us have been brought up on there is one correct answer, right? Now you're saying the answer is not the big weightage, it is the method that you're using to get to the answer which is the weightage, and you can have more than one method to solve the same problem, right? Don't just copy this just so that you can get marks, right? There needs to be a different way of thinking. The third is, if I give you a problem which is an open-ended problem, which is how increasingly workplaces are becoming, how do I start acquiring data? Where do I go to look for data? How do I even get that process started? A lot of adults don't know how to get started on this, let alone children, right? And then once you get data, how do you learn which part of it is noise? So even ChatGPT, like you're saying, can give you an analysis of Shakespeare, but you could have asked it for an analysis of Merchant of Venice. Imagine instead it gave you the analysis of King Lear and you didn't know the difference between the two, right? Probably not a good thing to do for English class, right? So, and teacher will catch that out. So there is still a lot of things that AI cannot reason. So it is also learning which is noise and which is the data that you actually require. So it means reframing pedagogies. I think in the interest of time, I know the student volunteers have been very, very careful about maintaining time accuracy. We are at 2:35. Please do continue to visit us at the crew booth. We can continue these conversations. Do visit us. And please remember, the force is still with you. Thank you so much.
And it's time to take our next step together. We have what it takes to rank in the top 50 global universities. Getting there needs us all to come together, to celebrate everything that we strive to be, to communicate with one distinctive voice, and to ensure that our identity reaches all of our diverse audiences. You have shared your amazing experiences. You have told with pride the stories of what makes this university great, and your work continues to build our reputation locally and internationally. All of this has helped us define who we are and what matters most to us. We openly collaborate across subjects, sectors, and society. No ego, no glory grabbing, just the perfect combination of insight and a down-to-earth approach. We have the unique ability to bring bright minds together across our UK and Dubai campuses and beyond. We are equipping our students with the knowledge, skills, and resilience to address the most pressing issues that the world is facing. We are a research powerhouse driven by an academic community that is unafraid of difficult questions. From this informed perspective, we can focus our expertise to create positive societal impact and bring the best of Birmingham to the world. Reaching the top 50 global universities is a shared goal, and we all have our part to play to take us there. It's time for us to move forward as one. We are University of Birmingham. We advance, we activate.
Hello everyone. Thank you for participating. This is the University of Birmingham, and they'll be presenting themselves. And I will request you all to please mute your cell phones. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Apologies for some of the IT issues to begin with, but thank you so much for joining us today. A very warm welcome to each one of you. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Garima Sharma. I'm the Deputy Regional Director for University of Birmingham in India. I, along with my colleagues, extend a very warm welcome to each one of you. Thank you for taking out time to be with us today. We always feel that IC3 is one of those times where we get to meet esteemed colleagues like you under one roof. So we thought this is an opportunity to talk about University of Birmingham, but more so about global education and international opportunities. All right, on behalf of University of Birmingham, I'm thrilled to welcome you all for today's session, which is about global education and international opportunities. We deeply value your support you extend to the students in the universities in terms of shaping up the students' careers. Your expertise, your dedication, and your valuable support, we're excited to present you this opportunity to share the latest updates from the university side, and also very keen to hear the insights from you today. So we'll try to make sure that this is an engaging session. So we're very happy to present the first part of the session and then pass it on to you for you to give us insights, what you've shared, which you can share it with us, where we can collaboratively work together to make it better for the student for the next intake. Thank you all again. Allow me to give you a quick brief of the session. So we'll start with me presenting some of the insights on University of Birmingham. We're very happy to share that we have two of the professors joining us from both of our campuses, Edgbaston, Birmingham, as well as UOB Dubai. So allow me to welcome Professor Paul McConnell. Professor Paul is a professor of global legal education and head of engagement for University of Birmingham. Thank you, Paul, for joining us today. Such a pleasure to have you. Up next we're going to be talking about the opportunities in UAE. So Professor Anis, we have from Dubai campus. Thank you, Professor, for joining us. You're going to talk about opportunities in UAE. Paul is also going to touch on the international labor market, not just UK, but beyond. And then we'll pass it on to you for a small group discussion before we conclude the session. So allow me to begin with some of the insights around Birmingham. So Birmingham is a city which is located in the middle of the UK, very strongly connected to the hotspots like London, a great connectivity from Birmingham. It's the second largest city for students to come in and have a great space, not just about the city, but the city has a lot to offer in terms of the opportunities for the students. Birmingham is known as the first manufacturing town in the world, the city of thousand trades, as we call it. It's very multicultural, very diverse. Also, a lot for students in terms of, we say, more miles of canals, waterways than Venice in Birmingham, and also great lush green campus. And beyond the campus, it's one of the premium suburbs in Birmingham, so it's very well connected through train. And also, in terms of the opportunities, it is the youngest city in terms of student population. It's also 48% of our students stays in Birmingham after graduation. So it's about the opportunities which the city has to offer to the international students, and we're going to talk a lot about the opportunities today. In terms of the key facts for Birmingham, we're the top 100 university. When we talk about top 100 global rank university, we are talking about the 0.5% of the universities which made it to the top 100. We're consistently in top 100, 35th most international university. We're the UK top 20 university when it comes to the ranking in the UK. And one thing which we always hear from the students around opportunities and employment opportunities in particular, and Birmingham, happy to share, is the rank one, the most targeted universities by the top 100 employees in the UK, which talks about the support we offer to the students on campus, the incredible work which our employability team do to make sure that we facilitate students with best of the opportunities on campus. We're also one of the very research intense institution. So 50% of our research is considered 4-star. We also get great research award in terms of external funding. We've got 306 million pounds in terms of the research funding. Also very well known for having Nobel laureates. We've got 10 Nobel laureates among students, among the alumni and staff. A great student community, not just in Birmingham but beyond. Our students are all across the globe successfully working in different domains. But at campus, we are a 38,000 student community. We're also a very old university, so we're a 125-year-old university, but also equally young because we invest a lot in our campuses. So over the last few years, we invested over 606 million pounds on our campus. Very safe and secure place, which students often ask us, and also with guaranteed accommodation for students on campus. Birmingham is also known for the track records of being number of first. So we're the first civic university to accept students from all background, culture, ethnicity. We're the first university to set up the commerce school and also the medical school in the UK. I think we're the only top 100 institution to unleash the potential in UAE by opening up a campus in Dubai. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. We hosted Commonwealth Games on campus, and only university to have an Indian-born chancellor who just stepped down. And we also are one of the universities who happy to share to our students that we have the train station on campus with the name university. So it helps students to be well connected within the city and outside. We do a lot of research and also develop research programs and academic programs for the world's top institutions, including India. So recently delivered a joint master's program with IIT Madras. And we're also working with different institutions across India, the top ones, to support our students. So these are some of the track records of first, and also the first university to develop the hydrogen power train. In terms of the QS ranking, just to place that, because that's one thing which often students ask us. Well, like I said, we're top 100 university, a total 27 programs fall in top 100 subject areas. We have 7 subject areas in world's top 50, including sports being on 6th. And then we have top 50, including dentistry, English, performing arts, linguistics, etc. And we also have new program subject areas joining us in top 100, which is around modern language, engineering, geology, geophysics, etc. So that to just give you how Birmingham is placed in terms of our global positioning and what we do. We're known for our key USPs. But allow me to pass the stage to my colleague Paul, who's going to talk about a little bit more on the international labor market, which I'm sure you all are waiting to hear. Paul, over to you.
Thank you, Garima. Hopefully you can all hear. Oh, very nice to have some applause to start things off for Garima, and really good to see you all here today. Thank you for joining us in this session on the University of Birmingham. Just to introduce myself a little more, I'm a member of teaching staff at University of Birmingham, and I teach in the law school, both mainly on our UK Edgbaston campus, but also on our Dubai campus, which we'll hear a little more about later. One of my personal passions, which I think I share with many of you, having had some discussions with some of you beforehand, is supporting students and helping students into successful careers of whatever type of career they might want to pursue. And as we all know, careers are becoming increasingly global, just as education is becoming increasingly global. So when we were thinking about the sorts of topics that we wanted to cover today, we thought it'd be a really good idea to spend a few minutes just talking about the global labour market and the types of opportunities that your students might be looking to access to understand how universities can support that journey. There's a wealth of expertise in the room, and we're really keen to share some of that. Now, Garima did say that at the end, we'd be coming to you for some of your ideas, and actually we will be, but before we even get to the end, I'm just keen to get a couple of thoughts from you to get things going. I don't know if anyone in the room is just happy to share. If we think about the international labour market, what are the particular common questions or uncertainties that come up in the students that you're working with, you're counselling about the international labour market? Does anyone want to volunteer just to share a few common issues that you're hearing on this topic? Anyone want to be our first to speak? Okay, Ramesh.
What kind of new roles that would be emerging in the labour market in the international context?
That's that, absolutely. So just in case anyone couldn't hear that, we heard from Ramesh, what kind of new roles are available in the international labour market? Absolutely, students want to know what the opportunities are for them. Anything else? I mean, certainly chatting with a few of you beforehand, we reflected on, I suppose, greater geographic diversity, students looking at a wider range of countries in which they might want to pursue a career, and of course, as we've just heard, a wider range of different roles as well. Now, this is what I do a lot of in my day-to-day job. A personal passion is counselling students on careers alongside my teaching. So if I can just share a few general thoughts about that, I'm sure much of which will be familiar to you. It's certainly very true, isn't it, that we're now looking at an increasingly global labour market. I've been in education for over 20 years, and I remember at first students maybe from India, for example, might come to the UK to study and then think about a career in India or maybe the UK. But increasingly we're finding that students come to the UK, they maybe stay in India, they look at careers in the US or Canada or Australia, in the Middle East. They're looking across the world at different career opportunities in a way that students just didn't a couple of decades ago. And of course, that increases the complexity of our job as counsellors. Thinking about the trends that we see, of course, it won't surprise any of us to know that the in-demand subjects in the global labour market tend to correspond with those subjects that we see students often going on to study in higher education, the tech and science-based subjects like computer science, business, of course, as well. But alongside this growing global movement, we see constant geographic shifts, countries falling in and out of favour, new developments year by year. And I think our Dubai campus is a very good illustration of that. We've seen, all of us, the huge economic developments in Dubai, which give rise to lots of different new job opportunities, which mean that it's a great place for us to have a campus. And during the event so far here at IC3, we've all really enjoyed as a team fielding actually loads of questions about Dubai. I would say we've had more questions about the Dubai campus, which isn't quite as well known amongst counsellors, as we've had about our very well known UK campus. So we'll hear more about Dubai later. But having set that scene of that shifting and increasingly complex global labour market, thinking about the areas that are important for us when we're advising students looking at developing a global career, I've tried to pinpoint 3 things that I find very important. First one is obviously visas. We know that that's an important starting point for students looking at a particular country as a place to study and work, to appreciate what the visa prospects are. In some countries that's well known, in others it can be a bit more complicated. Secondly, thinking about economic factors. Obviously every country has its own economic cycle, and it's a case of understanding what the opportunities are for students in light of that cycle. Then finally, it's the question of how we capture students' global experience and best enable them to access the labour market that they're targeting through that global experience. It's a very complex job for us, isn't it, as counsellors? It's a global, worldwide market now, and we're trying to navigate through all these complexities, not just of future study choices, but the work potential as well. As I said, thinking about visas, economies, and marketing that international experience. So as we try and put some of that into practice, as I said, I'm obviously based largely in the UK, and I thought it might be quite helpful just to look at a few updates from the UK as a labour market that we know many students are considering as both a labour market and a study destination, before we move on to look at Dubai and maybe draw some contrasting points from Dubai. Starting with visas, which I said was an important beginning point, obviously, of working with students. The good news for us in the UK is that, as I'm sure you've heard, after some uncertainty, the graduate visa has been retained by the government, and we don't see, with the new government, any prospect of that changing anytime soon. Therefore, any student who studies in the UK on an undergraduate or postgraduate programme will get a eligibility to apply for a 2-year graduate visa. Secondly, economic factors. Obviously, there's been economic turmoil across much of the world in the last few years with COVID and wars and so on. And the UK did have a recession, as you'll be aware. Just to be clear though, the UK hasn't been in recession now for quite some time. It is a growing economy, and looking at those data figures, we can see that actually the unemployment rate is pretty good amongst Western economies, certainly better than you find in the majority of Western economies, with still a good number of job vacancies available as well. So there is a vibrant graduate recruitment market in the UK in terms of counselling students on that. Speaking to some of you though, I do completely appreciate that there is some concern. You've probably all heard stories about students coming to the UK, maybe trying to access a job in the UK, and then not being able to do so successfully. And certainly that does happen for some students. In my experience, much less likely for someone that's done an undergraduate programme compared to someone that's only come for a year to do a postgraduate programme. If a student's with us for 3 or 4 years, they have a really good opportunity to immerse themselves in the labour market and secure a good job at the end of their studies. But that's not the only factor that doing an undergraduate programme. Other factors is where they're looking to work, and it's certainly in the larger cities where the opportunities exist. We see particularly increasing focus on Russell Group universities as well. Where there are sometimes disappointing outcomes from undergraduate programmes, it will often be students who haven't studied at a Russell Group university who find it more difficult to compete in the UK labour market with Russell Group graduates. A really useful resource, if you're not familiar with it, is High Flyers, which you can see a link to at the bottom of the screen. High Flyers is the main research on graduate outcomes. So it says which universities employers prefer to recruit from, and it's a very useful guide if you're counselling students as to whether a particular university may be a suitable choice for them. Those are just a few factors to consider though, and obviously it's a case of bringing that together across multiple labour markets that you might be counselling students on, and we'll hear a bit more about the Dubai picture from Anis later in the session. But just to share with you, in the University of Birmingham context, as you heard from Garima, we were in the High Flyers report this year, recognised as the #1 university in the UK, the university that came out top when employers were asked which universities they preferred to recruit from. And looking at that list of employers there, they're all employers that have recruited in recent years international students. So here we're talking about students who required visas from University of Birmingham. So there is that track record of success there, just to reassure you and students that you're counselling. But looking at where we come into it as a university, obviously you do amazing work with your students, counselling them about studies and counselling them about future careers. But to give you a flavour of what we do ourselves at University of Birmingham that helps support this strong focus on employability, I think the key thing to emphasise is that we have an international employability programme, which is specifically designed for international students. A few years ago, we made a very deliberate decision as a university to move away from this idea of offering the same employability, the same careers programme for every student. Because, for instance, if a student comes from India, let's say, their needs in the labour market and accessing the labour market would be different from those of a UK student. So in our international employability programme, there's specialist one-to-one support for students, recognising their needs as international students. We have lots of different events focused purely on international students, helping them meet employers and better understand what they need to do to access a UK or other global labour market. And I really would make that point that it isn't just about the UK. We're reflecting that idea of a global labour market. So a student who studies with us in the UK or in Dubai will also hear about opportunities in the United States, in Canada, Australia, in Asia, in Europe. They really will get the full package of career support to access that worldwide career that they might be looking for. On top of the general advice programme, we have a really good internship programme. Loads of internships in the UK and in Dubai, as we'll hear, but also in international internships. So I can tell you, for example, just in the law school where I work, this year we sent over 50 students on international internships this summer, including 11 students who did legal internships in India, in fact. And those were students from a wide range of backgrounds, some Indian students, but a lot of British and other nationality students looking to gain experience of law in the Indian context. So the work experience opportunities are there alongside the advice. And finally, one thing I'd flag up, which is really useful for a student who is looking for a global career, is the opportunity to have a year abroad. So if a student comes to our UK campus, they are eligible potentially to lengthen their degree from 3 to 4 years and study an extra year at one of our partner universities worldwide. And those are universities across all the usual popular study destinations. I think the top 3 that we send students to in terms of numbers are University of California, University of Melbourne and McGill University in Canada. So really big numbers going and spending a year abroad. We do also have partner institutions here in India. And for a student who studies in Dubai, as you'll hear, they have the opportunity to spend a year in our UK campus as part of their undergraduate studies in Dubai. So it all speaks to this theme of supporting students to access the global labour market through advice, through experience, and through opportunities to spend prolonged periods studying or working around the world. Now, with all of that said, I hope I've given us a good bit of scene setting. I'm sure much of that is familiar to you already as real experts in the field, but thinking about how we counsel students on this area, what some of the key issues and trends are, and equally what a university can do to help our students. I've spoken from the UK campus context, but now I'd like to invite Anis to come up and tell us a little bit more about the UAE. What's going on in Dubai? We know, as we said, a lot about the UK. Dubai is a bit more of a newer proposition.
Thank you, Paul. Hello, everyone. I'm Anis Zarad from Computer Science, Department of Computer Science, University of Birmingham, Dubai. So sorry if my voice sounds a bit scratchy, but just to add kind of a charm to the presentation. So yeah, let's go with the University of Birmingham, Dubai. Okay, so one thing which is important to know, so our campus in Dubai, it's not a kind of franchise. So it's part of the University of Birmingham itself. So we don't have any business partner, right? So the reason for that, it's just to keep the standard and the teaching quality same as University of Birmingham, UK. Yeah. So just a quick overview about the University of Birmingham, Dubai. So all our programs and the campus itself is accredited by the Ministry of Education in UAE. So very important also to mention is we are offering the same program, we are offering the same certificate, we are offering the same degree, right? We don't specify it from UK or Dubai, okay? So that's important thing for our students. We have expert academic staff. 70% of our academic staff are based in Dubai, and 30% what we call flying faculty, and Paul is a good example of that, is flying over Dubai to offer some courses in law and then back to UK. Our students can have the options to do the second year as an exchange program. So they do the first year in Dubai, they go to Boston for the second year, and then they came back for the third year. Yeah. So this is about Dubai, University of Birmingham, Dubai. So here our location, let's say, we have a new location starting from 2022, right? So we'll provide kind of 3,000 students, right? It's a sustainable campus. It's a smart building also. What we have currently, we have around 96 nationalities attending the university, students and academic and support staff. So it's located basically, I'm not going to say in the downtown, but it's located in a good location, what is called the academic city, right, in Dubai, where we have a lot of, let's say, student services and so on. Where we have also a good thing for students in Dubai, so we have scholarships, right? Compared maybe we have more, let's say, more offers to our students in Dubai. So a good thing is we have scholarship for Indian students. It can go to up to 40%. We have also what is called Provost Academic Scholarship, 50% by nomination, of course. And usually also we're offering what is called start scholarship from 10% to 25%. And also the offered scholarship, whatever you get from the first year, stay for the 3 years. Okay, it's not offered only for the first year. So that's also something you need to know about it. Of course, for more details, we can visit our website. So let's go to the most important part, as my colleague Paul said. So Dubai, as you know, so it's a kind of an economic hub and one of the safest city in the world, right? And I think this is important for the students and parents also, right? So what we have also, all the global companies, they have their headquarters in Dubai, and specifically in the city Dubai, not, for example, in Abu Dhabi or in any other city. You've heard, I think, there is a lot of technology going on in Dubai. I think the flying taxi, the self-driving car, all of these are developed in Dubai. And of course, having said that, so the development in industry, looking at AI, business, law, and many other programs, right? It's very, it have a kind of vibes in Dubai. Okay, as an university, also have to help students, right, during their study and after graduation. So we have basically the same support that Boston student have. So we have the career service. We have also, we help students to get their internship programs, help them as, for example, how to prepare for the interview, to prepare CVs, and so on. Right?
हाँ पेमेंट हो गया मैं उसको भी गाड़ी भिजवा रहा हूँ क्योंकि वहाँ बारिश हो रही है, तो गाड़ी जाएगी वहाँ और पेमेंट लेके आएगा.
So here's some thought about the after graduations, and so students, we have this company located in Dubai. So one of our students, for example, from computer science, they did the internship program with Deloitte, and now also she's working with them. Some other students, for example, especially in business, they did the internship in HSBC Bank, and then they are working with them. So we have, as also the, if you can see the statistics and the numbers, 85% of our graduates are employed in Dubai. So the question here, or the big question here, so for example, after student, when they finish their study, what are they gonna do? Of course, I think they can join if they have opportunity to join UK to do their, for example, MSc or PhD. That's gonna be, I can think, kind of straightforward process. But of course, if they wanna stay there, so the University of Birmingham, Dubai, they help them student support, so they help them to apply for a visa and sponsor, the university sponsor student visa. And also the good news, so we are offering UAE, now they are offering kind of what is called the golden visa. So after graduation, and especially if you are exceptional student, so it's a kind of straightforward again process to apply for a golden visa. What I mean by a golden visa, so you get the visa for 10 years, right? And it can be kind of freelancer. So we can do whatever you want as a job, but with your golden visa. Or of course, when you finish your graduation and you are graduated, so we can apply for, as for example, freelancer visa or an employee visa, right? So this is the process how to get your visa. So you can study and stay in UAE. Or of course, you can apply elsewhere as long as you have your diploma, right, from University of Birmingham, which is a top 100. We have a lot of good examples from our students. They went, for example, working in Saudi Arabia, they have to Kuwait, so it's open everywhere. Okay. So I think that's all about Dubai. If you want to just, before I'll go over to Karma.
Thank you, Anis. That was quite helpful. A big thank you to Paul and Anis for sharing their insights around global education and international opportunities, and the opportunity which is there for students to explore not just UK but beyond, not just Dubai but beyond in Middle East and other regions. Thank you so much. I'm sure you have a lot of takeaways to share with the students, but you always have an opportunity to connect with our academics whenever you want. So let me share that Paul and Anis are frequent in India. So we're very happy to connect our academics to your student community to directly benefit from the expertise they have in their own region, in their own areas, but also, we're very happy to kind of educate your students and counsel them, which will really help you in your day-to-day activities as well. So moving on to the next segment, which is about the small group discussion. I'm sure this is going to be the interesting part of the session. We just didn't wanted to kind of share the insights from us, but also wanted to hear the insights from you, because the IC3 overall believes in collaboration, and this is one way of collaborating between the schools and the institutions. And we feel, being very active in India, we definitely be able to add a lot of value to your schools and to your student community. So do give us the opportunity, but this is an opportunity to discuss what we can do collaboratively. So let's dive into a small group discussion, wherein I request you all to kind of come together, form some small groups of 5, 6 people or 7 people, whichever is convenient. We have 2 topics for you to discuss. Again, big thank you for joining us. We're very happy that you're here to share your insights with us as well. So we definitely didn't want you to miss that opportunity. So can I request you to come closer, divide yourself in groups, and also I request you to choose a group, a team lead who can represent the discussion for us. that will help us understand what the thought of the entire group is. We'll give you 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes to have this discussion, and the topics are what barriers do schools, school counselors, school in general, students, and parents face when exploring the international education opportunities. That's one thing. So, what all barriers you feel the schools and the parents, students face, please do share with us today. Because as an institution, we definitely would work on making sure that we bridge those gaps in the schools. Also, we would like to hear from you what kind of support or resources do students and schools need from universities to better guide the students for international education. So, can I request you to please come closer, divide yourself in different groups, and I'm sure my colleagues will help you steer the discussion as well if you need any help. Yeah, even if it's uneven group, that's absolutely fine.
Which one should be addressed first?
Lovely to hear your thoughts. Hello. Hello. Hello.
I think let's look at the tech bar. I'll go and drift around and see if people are talking and if we need to.
Oh.
The
I
roving
think it
mic.
helps steer the conversation as well. I think they're closer, that's why.
I think I said you're 20 minutes.
Next time she's doing it.
No, and wait, I didn't mean a mic up.
Next time she's doing it. Well, you need to train people. Like, she'll be able to do what you do. She'll try replicating. Very thankful. She'll try to replicate your
We'll be back much later.
Oh, we can't. We really want you more time than 3 or 4 times is not enough for you.
I always love to come out. So I think it works very well that trust in Dubai. It's actually a lot of today's people listening in Dubai, so it's nice we've got that going.
I know you can always come back.
Hi. I hope this discussion will help for you to come to some of the areas where we, as an institution, we need to work on. and hence we thought this is an opportunity for us to also use it to become educated here, especially with a lot of concerns in different countries. There are a lot of concerns that we have to deal with. So please feel free to share your positive and positive, negative, whatever the feedback is, or whatever the concerns are, but also about honest, candid discussion. We have something. I'll do that. And we will just bring a discussion. You're gonna.
I'll try and check like 3 minutes left. That will get. Got 3 minutes left for your discussions. We're looking forward to hearing your conclusions.
Anis is also learning. Anis is also hearing and learning. हमारा टीम अपने टीम पे ही just सिर्फ एक ही साइड
Shall we call them to?
But you have some very good people. Do you know the group there?
you want to kick off, shall I? Okay, okay. So I'll get each group to say and then I'll do it. Okay, yeah. Yes. Okay, everyone. If you can bring your discussions to a close, we're very keen to hear what you've been talking about. Okay, let's start the feedback. We're going to hear from each group in turn. So the plan of action is, bearing in mind the time, about a minute from each group with their spokesperson feeding back key themes, which we'll then draw together. My colleague Sifat has the roving mic, so I suggest we maybe start with our group nearest the front here, if one of you is happy to feed back for us. So over to you, 1 minute from this group.
No, Ramesh, it can't be you. No, it can't be you. Sorry, no.
Okay, when it comes to the first point,
Okay, so this is our first group's feedback. Let's hear what we've got.
We just made him to write all the points. Yeah, first question, let her say. Come on,
Yeah, hi, this is Nandini from Vishwashanti Gurukul, Pune. So the group here, I mean, we are a combination of, I think, South, West, East, North. Yeah. Okay. So the first question, what barriers do counselors, parents, students face when exploring? That's what we are here. Lack of awareness.
Yeah.
So in terms like,
about the opportunities or what the universities are offering.
Okay, so lack of awareness is a key theme. Thank you. I agree. It's a challenge for all of us.
yeah, then there's a concern about security of students. That's what's bothering the parents.
Yes.
Not the student,
No.
but the parents.
Yes.
Because student does his own research and
Yeah.
they are very confident, but sometimes it becomes very difficult to convince the parent. Yeah, cost of education and the return of investment is another concern. So, like, yes, there are very few scholarships which are offered at the undergrad level in general in the UK, and that amount is very nominal. It's
Yeah.
doesn't suffice. So that's and of course the placement and employment opportunity, as like we do know that all kind of support is given. Definitely nobody guarantees.
Yeah.
It entirely depends on the student, but that is one more major concern. And of course, yes, scholarships, I already spoke about that.
That's great, thank you. So really good articulation there of some of the barriers and the challenges that everyone is aware of. Anything that we can do as a university to help you?
Okay, the second thing here. Okay. My name is Bableet and I am from St. Kabir Public School, which is in Chandigarh. So for the second point, this is information resources, of course, that has to be available at one point of time. For example, kind of the library things, so we can, please.
So there's a British Council library which keeps a lot of information about universities and other things that we need to apply when somebody wants to apply. And earlier we used to do that process. Now this can help counselors. Earlier it used to help students. It will now help counselors, where they can have an updated resource. So you don't have to reach out to so many people. Those specific points in the entire country where whoever wants to do their research and the updated. So you send a brochure in Mumbai, one or in there. So the updated thing is there, and hence you can get a fresh information every time. Not just because the website does not have everything in detail, what a brochure code or otherwise. So that can be a good suggestion.
So second is counselors training. So that has to be a must, counselors training one by one, so that we will be. I know universities does have all these things. I was on the other side just 2 months back, so I know it. But in a vast section, for example, you may conduct trainings for particularly to, let's say, one school, one region, or maybe one agency, but it has to be collaborative, so that, but this is what I believe, so that because when people ask certain questions, might be I do not have the question at that time in my mind, so I can get the clarity on that. So group of trainings and all that will work, and in-person trainings will also make a major impact on that.
The other point was if maybe all the universities of maybe you're doing this, but all the universities of the UK come together with their government and invite counselors like us. Okay, we can pay for the travel and all everything, but the basic hospitality that can be taken care, and give us a tour of these universities, because now I'm here for the IC3 12th cohort, so I understood that visiting a university, like I'm at BML Munjal, I'm stationed there for 5 days. Being there and seeing an experience is different. And we can speak differently. So somebody tells me I want to do a course in BM in Muljar, I'll say, oh, it's a 1 hour drive from the airport, okay, because I've done it. Okay. So of course we will spend for the air, or we will spend the way we have done here, but the basic accommodation and something, and we can have a visit to the universities and have a first hand experience, and no fun, just work and come back.
So basically, she's talking about the farm visits. That's all, the farm visits. And access to alumni, current students, to understand, of course, the relations and everything. That is the main thing. I think we are taking a lot of time, so it's time to move ahead to others. So we have collaborated so many points. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Bableet and team.
Yeah. Just come to each group in turn. Maybe should we move to this group here? If we can just have like a 1 minute edited highlights from this group.
So do we have a spokesperson? Ma'am, your name and school, please.
Good evening, everyone. I know everyone had a very long and a tiring day, so I'll keep it crisp and short. I'm Ragini Kachwaha, Principal, Lucky International School from Jodhpur, Rajasthan. I think information and awareness, these were the two major points highlighted by the first group. I think this would be a common concern faced by every stakeholder, be it students, counselors, schools, parents, everybody, even students for that matter. So information and awareness should be readily available and available on one portal. As recommended, it could be British Council Library access or anyhow. Then the admission criterias. At times, children keep fiddling around their profiles for those 4 years, that children are not very clear about what is the admission criteria to any particular university. Would that university focus more on academics or on co-scholastics, or would it be athletics? Would it be a personal profile that the university would actually be looking at? What exactly would be the admission criteria? So admission criteria are at times unclear. Scholarships. Now this is one, I think, common issue which everyone faces. Children at times do not find it as per their requirement. Not basically, I'll say, just what they aspire. As per their requirement, at times scholarships do not end up, and that is one big concern. Post-study work visa, like we were talking about the Dubai campus. So do we have a post-study work visa only for Dubai, or does this degree also qualify for a post-study work visa in UK? We were assuming it. And is it, that if you do a degree from here, do you compulsorily get a post-study work visa? Or is it still reserved only for meritorious students? Is it something like that? Or, post a degree, do you get a work visa? Is that an assurity? Or is it reserved only for meritorious students? Of course. How about Dubai? Is that the same? All right. So you have to have a job offer to apply in hand. I mean, UK, you of course there. Yeah, that's not the condition. But in Dubai, that's a prior condition. That's what. So meritorious students or outstanding students. So I'm sure there would be a fee difference. Definitely. No, no. All right. So is it just the cost of living and the visa cost that you're trying to save? Why would a child prefer a Dubai campus over a UK campus? To be closer home. And as I said, so visa, hindrances. Okay. Okay. Right. Meritorious candidates. No, but then scholarships probably make the difference.
Because at Dubai campus, you can get 40% scholarship as well.
Yeah, just to clarify everyone, so University of Birmingham have got campus in Dubai which offers the same programs, the same degree, nothing changes. It's just an opportunity for students to do the same program outside UK. So for Indian students who are keen to study in their geographically closer location, Dubai turns out to be the best proposition. We're the only top 100 institution to have a campus in Dubai, and that's an opportunity for Indian student, and we see a lot of Indian student coming up with interest to come and study in our Dubai campus. Rightly highlighted by my colleague Sifat, we have more scholarship offerings for students on the Dubai campus, but we can talk about the UK scholarship offerings as well later. Yeah, just
Another thing for Dubai scholarships, when we get Dubai scholarships, it's going to be for the 3 years. I think in person just for the
it's for the 3 years, yeah.
And for Dubai, it's for 3 years.
And we can have the discussions about scholarships later, but bring it back to your point, yeah.
So I think these are the major concerns that we somehow felt. So making information available to everyone, to all the stakeholders. I mean, I today represent a school as a principal, and I mean, I'm sure there are very few principals here for the conference. But then, as a principal, I feel that, I mean, there's a counselor appointed, but then what is my counselor actually doing? Is he or she guiding my students in the right direction?
Of course.
I mean, so the entire fraternity needs to be on one
Come
portal
together to share the information.
and have same information.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. We passed on to the other group. Yeah.
Keep the mic moving around. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, am I audible? Yeah, sorry. So, a few of the things that we, of course, discussed as barriers was first, parents are really concerned about security of the students if they're going outside. In addition to that, especially for undergrad, because it's 4 years, so budget and finance becomes a huge issue. And I think the point you were mentioning that Dubai being very generous in terms of scholarships does add to be a great USP there, because outside it's very difficult to get more than 15-20% of the tuition waiver for merit-based scholarships. Then third comes in terms of visa, a lot of queries, concerns, issues as to how that works. Post completion of the undergrad, how can the visa be continued? How does that become into the post-study work visa? And then a lot of parents come to us with this question that we want to only go to the Ivy League or the tier 1 universities. We don't want to look at the backups. So how to convince them essentially that perhaps there's the new IVs, that list has come up with UT Austin, everything in the US. So like that, perhaps the positioning of a lot of other universities need to be in a way that they're also pretty good. And students can look at them because the infrastructure and the overall opportunities post-graduation are tremendous. So yeah, these are the few things that came in the discussion. If anybody wishes to add anything else, yeah.
So I get that we live in a VUCA world, but from my experience of one of the student, counselor recommended few of the courses, and based on that, student did not give a damn, and he was very well sorted, and he landed upon the Jacobs University in Bremen, which is constructor university in Bremen. So the student could research a bit we were focusing much more about the international labor market. So I find that what's the channel, I mean, via which students, parents, or maybe the counselor can perpetuate actual culture of the university to the student, because we are meeting right now. But what's the frequency of the events before the students via teachers or some other fraternity where students get to learn about it? It's not always the counselors. So that student was smart enough to land upon the Bremen, and he was pretty brilliant to make it out what exactly the course is looking for, looking to the market need. But when we see different university, how the faculty there has got some sort of an outreach where there is a frequent, exposure of the culture. Because, yeah, we teach the different subjects, but how they are exposed to, and based on that, how they make the smart decisions. So that's sort of a big barrier, that's what I understand. Thank you.
So just to add on that point, that is a barrier, and I think that's when, as an institution, we try to engage with the students as early as September, October, and we prepare them for different subject areas. So for example, apart from requirements, but also about what we teach in the program, how this program can help you shape up the career and what you're looking for in future. At the same time, we also run some counselor symposium events, which I'm sure we have your details, so we'll surely be floating the invite when we do it in November. So that gives you an opportunity to come and interact with our academics who come from different specializations, different subject areas. There's a lot for them to kind of share. Also talking about more widely about the student success story. So thank you so much. We will definitely keep you in the loop. Yeah.
Thank you for the very valuable contributions. Now, we've got, moving on with time, one quite large group over here we've not heard from. If one of you can briefly introduce yourself and then feedback any key points.
No, yes, like Sir said, every point I think has been covered that we were discussing about in terms of barriers, the same issues of safety, the cost of attendance, and then the return, how much would that be, the job opportunities. In terms of the resources, I think we've already discussed what is missing, but I would like to take this opportunity to tell that it's very good. I think we were just discussing that how well UK universities websites are, how friendly they are, with very specific information about the programs, about the requirements in terms of the application and admission requirements. Everything is very well mentioned, and that's very helpful for us as counselors. I think what can be included, I don't know how can that be done, but something about the rankings of the university, that is something that's available. But still, if like 2 or 3 universities hold similar rankings one after the other, in terms of what would be the better fit for a student for a particular program. So this is this information for counselors. This is something that if we know what is not easily available on the website, something that the university is the kind of facilities that they are offering on the campus. If you're aware of such things, that helps us guide the students better in choosing the best fit for them. So that's one kind of
thank you. That's a really helpful point. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so thank you to this group for the comments. I think we've got around the main groups constituted in the room. I'm conscious there's maybe 1 or 2 people we haven't spoken with. Over here, yes, here we go.
I would like to contribute here. I'm Sangeeta from the Gaudium School. So when you say what are the barriers students or schools, counselors or parents face, is the barrier first of all lies that we need to recognize what are the skill set of the students and whether, the interest, do they have interest and passion for that course. Yeah. So without knowing that, in most of the cases, when you see the Indian parents, what they do is, you've scored 80%, 90%, so you deserve to take a medical course or you deserve to take a engineering courses what they feel.
Yeah.
But it's not that. A medical student, before even he, he or she selects, I think we all should give them a psychometric test, give them some, take the inputs from the students, whether it is the school counselor or whether it is any parent, understand the child's psychology, whether they are interested in that or not, and then you work with that. I don't know if everybody agrees with me. I feel that is one best criteria, that what the child wants, we all need to work towards it.
Absolutely.
If people agree with me, I think that is it. Yeah, I don't go with marks. I counsel more than 200, 300 students every batch, but then we exactly understand what they want to do in life.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
key, isn't it?
we bridge in the gap between the parents and the students and the counselors, and we all come to the same page. Yes, this is right for you.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you so
contribution
much.
to.
I'm not in any group, so if you
No,
please
thank you.
disagree with what I say, you can please correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate the contribution. And I'm sure we'll have some more discussions once we've concluded the formal part of the event. But on the topic of conclusions, I've been given the job of bringing things together and trying to conclude the discussions before some brief final comments from Garima and Anis. So if I can just try and draw together maybe 3 key takeaways that I've taken away from the points that you've just mentioned. First one for me is information. It's for all of us having the right information to be able to confidently counsel students. And it's really a problem, isn't it? There's so much information now, it can be quite overwhelming to look through it and feel that we're on top of all of the detail of that information. To pick up on one point that was raised about entry requirements, if we're thinking about the UK, one interesting development we'll see in the next recruitment cycle is that UCAS is going to make available the grades that students were actually admitted to undergraduate courses on. So, for instance, we might see an institution that is asking for 3 A's, but the UCAS data will show actually last year the average student that went to that course got 3 B's. And it will, I think, help all of us working with students to understand what the reality is and if a student is going to be a good fit academically with an institution with the grades they're actually likely to get. So I think information is a key first point. A second point, I think, is that issue around finding the right fit for each individual student, which will be different. And again, that's difficult, isn't it, when there's so many institutions, so many different options. And I really like this idea of further engagement. I know we've got some quite exciting counsellor events we're going to be planning over the next few months. We would love to welcome any of you to campus if you happen to be in the UK, and we can certainly look at opportunities to make that happen as well. Also, just to extend an academic engagement offer. Many of our University of Birmingham academics are frequently in India, and we love visiting schools and meeting students. This is my 4th or 5th visit to India in 2024 alone, and the same will be true for many of my colleagues. We're often here, we love to work with the team and come and see you and meet your fantastic students. And then I think my third takeaway is actually around Dubai. We deliberately mentioned Dubai today because we're aware that whilst people know our UK campus quite well, Dubai is a bit more of an unknown quantity, and I hope you found the information that we've given useful, particularly the points around the different visa arrangements. Safety is obviously a big positive factor for Dubai, and convenience, and the scholarships. The scholarships for Dubai are really fantastic. I can say I know quite a lot of Indian students who are benefiting from a 40% scholarship in Dubai this year, but still getting that University of Birmingham certificate just as they would if they come to the UK. So hopefully that's a good summary of final points, and to say my thanks to you all for your contributions. It's been great to meet you all on quite a large group level, and hopefully we can chat a bit more afterwards. If I hand over to Garima.
Just wanted to add last point there. I think the common thread in all the discussions was around scholarships, and we understand how important it is for students' decision-making state. So I would request my colleague Ramesh to talk a bit about scholarships offered by Birmingham so that you're aware. We're still in the process of finalizing it for next intake, but we can still share some of the information around it. Ramesh, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Garima. My name is Ramesh Velichami, and I work as one of the student recruitment managers for Birmingham in India. So in terms of scholarships, I think with our knowledge, I would also like to add on information for scholarships for other universities as well. For example, having worked in the British Council for years, I'd like to add on some more information, generic information. When your students are looking for scholarships, there are a number of opportunities. One could be just the particular department where they are going to join, they will have some scholarship. And the university overall could have got some scholarships. And the student recruitment team, sometimes they have got targets to achieve, and there could be some scholarships. And in universities like ours, we have specific criteria or specific opportunities within country. So in India, we offer around 40 scholarships to the extent of £4,000 each for undergraduate students. So year on year, there would be little fluctuations and the number could go up. Last year, we only had 25 and in the following year, it could be 40 to 50. That's the kind of information we are getting. Yeah, and that's one thing. And the second aspect is there are so many trusts in India. For example, Tata Trust, they offer so much scholarships. And these days, almost all the corporate companies, social responsibility wing, they have got scholarships. Very often, these opportunities could be need-based. So in the school, you got fantastic access to all the corporates through the parents. So as much as you aspire to engage with universities, the parents are great resources as well. You could possibly try to exploit that as well. And then there are organizations like British Council. From there also there could be some funding. But honestly, like organization British Council, the undergraduate opportunities are a little lesser, but at the postgraduate level, students could find more opportunities. Anything more? Yeah, when it comes to our Dubai campus, we offer flat 40% scholarships on the tuition fee for the entire duration of their education. When it comes to UK, the first year scholarship is guaranteed, and for the second and third year, it's pinned on their performance in the year 1 and 2. Whereas in Dubai, straight away. And like Paul already mentioned, they get the same UK degree. Yeah. Thank you. Any questions or anything?
Thank you, Ramesh. I think we can take the questions after the session. But thank you. We understand you come from different part of the country, and we also have a team based in different locations to come and help you and support your students. Very happy to come and meet your students in your school. Well, like Paul said, we have academics coming around, so we can definitely bring the academics. And these are the people who will make it work. So Ramesh is one of them. I'll introduce the other team members for you.
Hi everyone. Sorry for keeping you all. I know it's been a very long day, but thank you for joining us. My name is Niharika. I'm based in Mumbai and I do look after certain parts of South India, AP Telangana to be precise, East India as well as Bangladesh. So if you have any queries, you could reach out to me or otherwise. No.
Hello everyone, good evening. Very sorry to keep you, after the time limit as well. My name is Navjot and I'm based in Mumbai as well. And I look after the West and, the country of Nepal as well.
Hi everyone. For everybody who does not know me yet, I'm Sifat Puri and I'm based out of New Delhi itself. I look after the Central and North India regions. I think I've met with most of you before, but happy to meet with you again for any catch-ups.
Thank you, Sifat. And again, a big, big thanks from all of us for you to join us today. It was a brilliant discussion. We loved the insight which came from your schools and different regions. We'll definitely work together as a team now to make sure how we can provide the best services to our schools and students. The idea behind all of us here in India is to make sure that our students are well facilitated with the information they need and the schools get that help through the institutions have their office in India. So we have an office based in Delhi, but our colleagues are based in different locations. Happy to help you at any point, so feel free to reach out. But a big thank you and a round of applause for each one of you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.